Hi everyone, this is Howard again. Welcome to another Star Talk Tuesday. This Tuesday being June 23rd, 2020. Alright, so if you're a Florida resident and you're looking up in the sky, then you know the same thing we all know, and that is that the weather isn't necessarily very friendly to observing. Meaning clouds fill the sky and generally deliver a lot of rain, much needed rain, but still not very friendly to observation. So what we talk about today may or may not necessarily be visible immediately, but remember it's there, and as the clouds part or as opportunity presents itself, always keep binoculars handy because they will afford you those opportunities to get those views of those really elusive parts of the sky. And if I can characterize this accurately, make it worth your while, what I would consider arguably the best part of the nighttime sky as an observer, as part of the fixed sky in the background, one of the best parts of the sky are visible between June and July and into August, and we're talking about the central region of the Milky Way galaxy, arguably one of the most stellar-packed regions of the sky, and of course full of really interesting things to look at that reveal sort of the nature and the distribution of things throughout our galaxy. Anyway, let's go ahead and accelerate into the evening, and remember, the weather may not be so friendly, so take in with a grain of salt what we talk about today. Remember, apply it when the opportunity presents itself. So let's go ahead and accelerate our time. Try not to go too fast there. Yeah, right about there. Let's take this over right after the sun has gone down below the horizon. So we're right around 9 o'clock. The glow of the sun is still clearly there, and it may not actually be right below the horizon. We can move that just a little bit further forward. Right about there. So we can see that the moon is up, and what you see with the sun, the glow there, you can kind of get a sense of, relative to the Earth, the moon, not too long ago, was in a position pretty much lined up between the Earth and the sun. And that was when the moon was in a phase known as a new moon. Now, as the moon continues to move in its orbit, it continues to shift. And eventually what it will lead to is putting the Earth between the sun and the moon. And then that's what you'll get, what we call a full moon. So as you look, the moon, if it were with the new moon right there, has just slowly shifted into this position, and in about another a little less than 2 weeks will finally move all the way across the sky, and then as the sun is setting, the moon will be rising, and then you'll be looking at a full moon. And so what we should see today, or tonight, is a tiny little sliver of a moon, a crescent moon, and I would describe it as a right-hand parenthesis, because you're seeing that part visible closest towards the sun. There we go. There's our little right-hand parenthesis, our little fingernail clipping in the sky. Now, for you keen-eyed observers, you'll notice that there's something nearby. Not just that. That's NOS 32. That's a satellite going by. So if you happen to be looking at 9:15 tonight, that's what you'll see. And I think if we give this a couple seconds more, there's another one coming by. Let's see if we can accelerate the clock. There we go. Oh, it went by a little bit too fast for us. I think it's called Intercosmos. There we go. We'll put time by. There we go. So as we come in, there is this satellite. And this is pretty precise. For your view, if you're looking at tonight at 21:24 or 9:24 in the evening, as you're looking at the moon, right next to this beautiful cluster here I'm going to jump into in a second, we see Intercosmos 24. It's a satellite going by. And if you're looking at a binocular view, you might be able to catch that. That's what I love about this program, is that it stays very up to date on the passage of satellites in the sky, and it knows where we are, so it knows what we will be able to see. Okay, the moon, our crescent moon, not too bright that it doesn't block the light of this little star cluster here. This star cluster, known as the beehive cluster, relative to a binocular view, might look like a swarm of bees, but it's known as the manger. The manger being that object that holds hay for usually domestic animals. In this case, these two stars here, there's Acellus australis and Acellus borealis, meaning the donkey of the south and the donkey of the north. And of course the donkeys are going to be hanging around where the hay is, or the manger. Oh, we got another satellite going by. What is that? Oh, we got one of the Starlinks. There we go. So the Starlinks, folks, those are the satellites that were launched by Elon Musk. A lot of people got upset about them because they reflect light. Wow, look at this. We got a veritable traffic jam here. We got another Starlink going by. These satellites are eventually going to lead to broadband internet connection, basically covering the map all over the globe. They visually probably won't lead to a problem because I think they've corrected their future satellites going up with visors that block them from reflecting light. But we get an interesting little visual treat as we look. A few satellites passing by in the view. So the moon here, buzzing by, looking like a little right-hand parenthesis right past this little clump of stars known as the Beehive Cluster. And what we get here is a nice little, pretty little evening piece to look at between those two stars that cluster in the moon. That is a visual treat. Now, let's go ahead and pull this all the way back out to our southerly view, and we look at what's coming up. So I'm going to sink this down a little bit further, and we're going to move the clock a little bit further forward. Now, actually, before I do that, let's put up some constellation lines. There we go. So what we see over here coming up are 3 constellations in particular. I wish I could turn them on specifically, but I can only turn on all of them. It's between these 3. There's the Eagle, Aquila, there's the Swan, Cygnus, and there's the Harp, Lyra. And each one of these constellations has a really bright star. Like any constellation, the brightest star is known as the Alpha, and this would be Alpha Aquilae, Alpha Lyrae, and Alpha Cygni. And those are what we would call their Bayer classifications. They also have proper names because they are so bright. This one is Altair, this one is Deneb, and of course this one you can see, that's Vega. Now these stars make up what's known as the Summer Triangle. Let's go ahead and get rid of those artwork there. And as we just see those bright stars, you're going to see them rise up into the view as we shift the Milky Way a little bit higher up. We're going to go to somewhere around 10:30. There we go. We can watch that Milky Way brighten into view. So right around there, whoop, we're about 11:15 now. That's fine. So as we shift our view to the south, we can see, our triangle is coming up. There's that very distinct triangle, and it sits nestled over this arm of our galaxy. I wonder why Deneb's name is not popping up. There we go. So Deneb there, Vega and Altair make up what's known as the Summer Triangle. Parked right over that little stretch of the Milky Way galaxy that stretches right here into what I want to jump into. That's the center part of our galaxy, nestled right in between 2 prominent constellations, and we'll momentarily put the artwork back up. Between Scorpius and Sagittarius, they sort of bookend that central region of the galaxy, giving us some of the most spectacular views in the sky. We're going to zoom in onto that in a moment. But as we look, I want to talk about this very interesting part of the sky that's found nestled right in between the junction between this constellation. This is Ophiuchus. He's the snake wrestler. As you can clearly see, he's wrestling the snake. The snake is not trying to eat him. And then Scorpius. Now, they look very close. I'm going to show you where the boundaries are. There we go. So we get rid of the artwork. It's right in this little region right here that we're going to be looking. So I'll leave those boundaries up. And as we see, the Milky Way is rising up into the sky. Rising up out of the east, up into the high southern sky. And we move into this region right here. And there we see the bright star, Antares. Now Antares this is a red supergiant star. I think it's about 12 times the mass of our sun. It's very big. And as a consequence of its color, it's called a red supergiant. But its name is the interesting part here, Antares. Now, this particular star sits very close to the ecliptic path in the passage of the planets. And one of those planets that goes by is the red planet Mars. So you have this red planet that it periodically passes very close by, and here's this bright red star. Well, that bright red planet is called Mars. And of course, Mars is the Roman name for the Greek, or the Roman name for their god of war. But the Roman god of war was named for the Greek god of war that the Romans adopted and changed their names. And Mars was, to the Greeks, was called Ares. So you can imagine the red planet Ares coming by, and here's this bright red star. Perhaps it led to some confusion. So they felt compelled to name it Antares, which literally translates into the opposite of Ares, or in opposition to Ares, or quite simply, not Ares. In other words, not Mars. So here's this red star, and don't confuse it with the red planet that happens to come cruising by. Anyway, we're not talking about Mars, we're talking about Antares, and this beautiful region of the sky known as the Rho Ophiuchi cloud complex. Now, we could see it here in the imagery because this is taken with a photograph. You would never be able to see the color here with your eyes, simply because the quality that is most limiting is your eyes. Your eyes simply can't see color without enough light, and at night that's just simply not what we're getting. And the stars are so far away and the light emitted is so faint we don't see the color, and that's why cameras can pick it up but our eyes can't. So in that context, what you can see with telescopes, of course, is perhaps some of the dark nebula here, and these dark nebula lead to this cloud complex I want to talk about, and because this kind of gives us a sense of where you're looking in the sky. It'll give you some sense of structure. So Antares here is about 550 light years away. Put this in context, a light year is the equivalent of 6 trillion miles, so it's very far away, relatively speaking. 550 light years away. Now here is a star known as Rho Ophiuchi. This star is about 360 light years away, as is this cloud complex that you see it's nestled inside of. So if we kind of zoom in here, we get what we call a reflection nebula. The brightness of those blue stars of Rho Ophiuchi are backlighting these dark clouds of molecular hydrogen, basically the stuff of stars. This is where stars are born, these kind of gas clouds. And so you're looking, these are main sequence stars, so these are stars that are relatively young and they're sort of living out their lifetime now, but they're revealing the clouds where stars are born and creating this beautiful reflection nebula. It's the dark clouds that lead to stellar birth. Now, this cloud of molecular hydrogen is about 360 light years away. A further 200 light years away is Antares. Antares, though, is a red supergiant, and if we park this star in our solar system, it would fall somewhere between the outer edges of the star, would fall somewhere between the orbits of Mars and Jupiter. It would swallow up all the inner planets. So this really bright star is illuminating the clouds with its own red light that you can pick up in photographs. Sometimes it's called the Antares Nebula, but it's actually part of the Rho Ophiuchi cloud complex. And to me, I love it because visually what you'll see here is the sort of the gentle reddish glow of ionizing hydrogen, the sort of yellowish reflection of Antares, and then the blue of the reflection nebula around Rho Ophiuchi. And if you're not familiar with international flags, this is the Romanian flag, red, yellow, and blue. And before I knew it was the Romanian flag, I used to just call it stoplight because it kind of reminded me of, red, yellow instead of a green, kind of a bluish green. In any case, as you can see, I didn't have a lot of time to spend here, but there's so many things to see between the glow of Antares and its distinction as the opposite of Mars. With some telescopes, you might be able to pick out some of the reflection nebulosity around this area, and of course we've got globular clusters. There's 2 of them right there. This one is 30,000 light years away, so it's kind of like, well, you're looking through the galaxy and you're looking through a relatively thin part of it, and you're looking through a nebula here, and way off in the distance you can see a globular cluster very far away and another one relatively close. Anyway, as we pan our view out, what we see here is a tremendous part of the sky that goes beyond just this little segment. Down here, and I'll try to make this really quick, we get down into the tail of the scorpion here, all nestled right into that central region. And down here we have one of my favorite star clusters in the sky. This is called, well, the star cluster is known as NGC 6231, and I don't know, oh, there it is. I don't know if this is going to actually, let me pick it. I'm not going to wrestle with it. Anyway, there's a star cluster down there that I'm a big fan of. And over here, excellent binocular targets. Here we have Ptolemy's cluster, and of course the butterfly cluster. All of this found in a fairly large view, but a pair of binoculars is your friend. Not only do they afford you wide field views, but they also allow you to take advantage of those opportunities in the weather. When the skies clear up, you can quickly take a pair of binoculars out, versus, say, trying to set up a telescope. Anyway, I think I've run out of time. I could blather on and on about the central region. I think anyone that knows me knows me. I could spend hours here talking about this. So with that parting shot, you'll also note that Jupiter and Saturn are coming up in those early morning hours and will be visible soon all across the evening sky. Anyway, thanks again for joining us, folks. We'll catch you all next time.